Alright guys, so I got the timing cover off. Taking the top two covers off, that's no big deal. That's pretty self-explanatory. But this guy here, so a little pro tip, at least a good tip for me anyways, is if you ever have to take this cover off, you have to work around this motor mount right here. And when you take all the bolts out, trying to get this thing finagled out of the car is kind of a pain in the butt. So what I had done on mine is I made this small cut right here. And the other piece of this is still in place right here. So what this allows you to do is when you take out the, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts holding this in. There's a 7th bolt that goes on this piece right here. You can leave that there and then pull these out and then fish this guy up from the top. This was some of the damage I had when my power steering pulley was way out of alignment and it threw the belt off the tensioner. Kind of dug into that cover. But looking underneath the car, my front main seal does not appear to be leaking. If I can get this light in here bright enough. So if you look underneath the timing gear there, it's pretty dry. And let me see, move around, see if I can see it better with this light here. So under here, it's actually dry. I know there's some, looks like some oil residue, but the oil is actually leaking right here off the my valve cover, or not my valve cover, oil pan. So this looks terrible because I told you there was a broken piece and I tried to silicone it on there. I'm going to plastic weld it back together on my timing cover and clean all of this off to see if I can see how bad it's leaking here. Because man, I really don't want to pull this oil pan off, especially with this full header, because I have to take the header off the way this thing runs underneath the car. I'll show you over this way. Right there, so the long tube headers actually run underneath, right underneath the oil pan. So I have to take all that off to be able to drop this oil pan. So I'm contemplating how I'm going to fix that part of it. But for now, at least it looks like my front crank seal is okay. I'm probably going to go ahead and pull that timing gear off and take a better look, because it does look a little wet up that way, even though I run my finger across it and there's really no pooled oil there. So I want to take all this off to do some further investigation, check my galley plug, which is up that way, and see, because I don't want to put this back together and something bad be leaking, other than that oil pan seal right there, because I don't want to blow my motor up. So let's keep digging. Alright guys, so I got it, timing cover off. I got it top dead center. As you can see, I got timing mark there, and they line up inside of the valve cover with some other marks. But up here, I just wanted to show you, this is how I like to do it. I know there's many ways with, you know, those big paper clips, bread clips, whatever you want to call them. I just put zip ties on there just to make sure that the timing belt does not jump off of there, because I'm going to take the lower gear off, which is down here. And as you can see, there's a timing mark. Let's see, let me get my screwdriver. There is a mark, a little U shape out of the lower sprocket down here that lines up with that piece. So it's top dead center. Now I'm getting ready to take my chain tensioner off and see where that, if there's any oil, because it still just looks kind of damp up in there. So I'm going to do some further investigating. So here is my lower timing gear right here, and as I took it out, I noticed it was wet behind there. So then I took off the, golly man, I don't even know what this thing is called. It's basically where the crank sensor reads the crank position. And there's this, you know, it's almost like a notched washer. And as you can see, it's got oil on the backside. So this part goes on first, followed by this, and then the timing gear goes on top of it. It's the order that it goes on the car. So as I was pulling it off, I was seeing a little bit more oil. So once I pulled it off, that's what I saw right there. So it is the front main seal leaking. I did take a razor blade and I cut all that, some of that extra silicone off down on the front lip of that oil pan. And it does not appear to be leaking. I know it's a little shiny in here, but I've checked it out pretty good, which that makes me more happy than anything, because I did not want to have to take that oil pan off or try to figure out how to fix that. But front crank main seal, that one should be pretty easy. The hardest part's probably gonna be getting it out. So I'll probably start with a couple small sheet metal screws and try and screw them in there and see if I can pull them out. If I can get underneath it with something, maybe I can pry it out. I won't video that. If I find a successful way, I'll tell you how I did it. But it'll be hard to video getting that out, because moving back here, there is just not a lot of room. And all you're going to see is my hands and probably some cursing and swearing. So let me try to get this out and then I'll bring you back. Well, that was awfully quick and easy. I just used this little pick and I poked it into the that lip and I pried it and this thing came right out. And what I noticed, let me see if that'll focus on there. You see that line that's kind of running down the middle of that seal? I don't think this seal was pushed in all the way. So when I had rebuilt this engine, maybe there you go, you can see a little better there. When I rebuilt this engine, I bought a whole oil pump assembly, water pump. I did all the usual things you do when you do your timing. And I never checked this front seal because the front seal was in it when I bought it. And as easy as this thing came out, I don't think it was ever fully seated in the hole. So I got a new one. It's a National Oil Seal, part number 223750. So interestingly enough, here's the new seal compared to the old. As I measured the inside diameter, the outside was just slightly larger, maybe, you know, 1/4 of a millimeter. The inside was about 1/2 millimeter smaller. So I'm thinking this is just a cheaply made seal, because this thing has, I don't know, 10,000 miles on it, and it already feels, the outer lip seal just feels stiff on it. So I'm wondering if this rubber on this had just hardened and then it just worked its way out. But either way, I'm gonna put this new guy in here. That's what it looks like without the seal in it. I'm gonna clean up the oil around it, tap this new one in, and we'll go from there. And there she is. Actually notice once that seal was all the way in there, it actually recesses just a little bit. So that definitely tells me that other seal had either was never fully seated or had slipped out. So it's always a good thing to check that when you get a new oil pump. But it's very tedious to get that guy in there, because, you know, if you roll the lip of that seal and you don't realize it, and then you put this whole thing back together, you're going to have a mess on your hands. So I just used a little piece of 1.5 PVC and just a small hammer, and just went around the edge and just, you know, tapped it in place, and here we go. So now we're going to start the reverse process of putting the timing belt back on. Figured it'd be a good idea to show you guys this part here. So this is the back of the timing gear, and then there's these little bitty tiny alignment pins on here. So how this thing goes back together, this thing is, this piece is recessed, and it lines up with these little pins here, and it sits down in there. And then this little washer has the same holes, and you want to line it all up with the keyway. Then you put this guy on there, and then when you go to put this on the engine, let me flip it over here. You want to take your crank position sensor and actually magnet it onto one of those little pedals. You know, I should go on, I think, this one over here. But anyway, you want to have this all slides on the engine together, because once you put this in place, you can't get this in there. So I'm going to wipe some of that oil residue off this, and then we're going to slide this back in. Alright, and there she is all back together. Always a good idea to rotate the engine at least one time, sometimes a couple times, to make sure that that timing mark and those timing marks line back up, which they are. Now, lastly, do not forget to pull out the pin. I just used a finish nail, and I also have the washer on my timing belt tensioner. That way it never completely slacks off. But make sure you pull that little pin out. And then I'm going to take that crank bolt out, and now it's just put timing cover on and reverse the process. So with that, we'll conclude this video for now. We'll get the timing covers back on it. Then it's on to throttle cable, power steering pump, get my supercharger back on there, maybe a couple of little knick-knack things. So I may or may not video that process, but for now we're going to end this. Thank you for sticking with me, and we'll have this car back on the road before we know it. Hope you guys like this video. Click that like button, subscribe. There'll be some more videos to come and some exciting stuff. Talk to you guys later.